What is this? Multiple vlogs in a week span? Yeah, I have some stuff I want to talk about. So if you watched my vlog from, well, last night is when I posted it. It is Sunday. It is January, what, 14th, 15th? January 15th. You can go ahead and check it out. Get in frame. I will put a card up so that you can get to it really fast. I don't usually do it that way, but we're going to do it this time. I talked a little bit about where I've been, and I discussed a number of things, and I even discussed why yesterday's video looked so crappy. And I know it looked awful. I'm sorry. Everything was really shaky. My mic is really shaky. My mic is wobbling around now. I've reconfigured some things. The mic before was coming from this side, and it was really intrusive because I didn't seem to understand that I could move it away from my face and it would be fine. But I have since moved it. It's now right here going that way. And obviously my green screen effect behind me is improved. I've cleaned up the background. I took out the gaming images because they're silly. There's no need for that. I don't need anything. I just have my logos. I'll probably in the future maybe put some social media links, or not links, but images or just something to fill out the rest of the space. But I want to keep it simple. So that's what I am doing here. I'm keeping it simple. I rearranged a little bit to make it a little bit better. And I actually have a lot more space, and there's a picture up actually on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram showing how my layout looks. My mouse pad is much further to the right now. My keyboard is right in front of me as opposed to being off to the side where it was before. So I have a lot more space, but that's not what this video is about. I talked a little bit about the PC build that I was going to do, and I want to give a little bit more information because people are probably watching that going, well, what is he really trying to do with this PC? It sounds like he has no freaking clue. And some of that is true. I don't actually have a complete clue as to how this is going to go, but I have a general idea. I have the core pieces picked out. I know it kind of how I want to do it, and I'm hoping to be able to pull this off by spring. So what am I trying to do? Well, obviously the first piece is here. I put a clip in that video yesterday showing a little bit of me unboxing the case, and I'm not sure that clip's going to make it to YouTube because the audio is awful. I need a better camera for recording these things, and I need a mic that goes into that camera so that it doesn't sound like garbage. But that's neither here nor there. This is about the future build. And in that clip you do see in that previous vlog, I show the NZXT H440 case that I am going to be using. Now, this is the case I've wanted for quite some time. I came across a deal I couldn't, pass up. I went for it, and I regret nothing. It was a $120 case that I got for $85. You can't beat that, even with a stick. So what am I going to put into this case? That's really what it comes down to. What am I going to build in this case? And it's going to be on the X99 platform. Now, immediately somebody out there is going, well, you don't need X99 to do gaming. It's overkill. In fact, Skylake, Kaby Lake are actually better for gaming. And you're correct. But this is not going to be simply just a gaming machine. This is going to be for video editing, rendering, compression, and streaming. And so I want that little bit of extra oomph that X99 gives. Somebody else out there is now going, well, AMD has announced Ryzen, and they're going to have stuff that's going to be better than what Intel has, and it's going to be cheaper. That also may be true. However, I don't trust AMD, and I have not seen any real-world specs on AMD. In fact, on this Ryzen. In fact, I really want to talk about Ryzen, and I really want to talk about CES and the Nintendo Switch and all that stuff, but that's for another time. I don't trust AMD. I'm a little leery of their claims. I'm a little leery of what I see, and that's simply because tech companies tend to take liberties with the samples that they demonstrate with. Either it's been engineered somehow. I don't know. I want to see real world results, and I'm not saying AMD is doing this. I'm just saying in general this seems to happen a lot. We get all these spec leaks, and then the actual product comes out and somebody goes, it's not exactly what the demonstration I saw said was going to happen. So I'm waiting to see what comes out of that. I'm curious about Ryzen, and I'm curious about their Vega GPU structure, but I'm not banking on it. And I'll actually get to something that I want to do that may involve AMD down the road. So X99, depending on budget, it's either going to be a 5820K or a 6800K. Now, again, somebody's going, well, 6800K is not much of a step up from 5820. I know that, but stock. Here's the thing. I want to get this stuff, and I'm probably going to get this stuff from Micro Center. Micro Center does not even have like 5930Ks listed anymore. They still have 5820s. 5820s are $328 right, or $320 right now. 6800s are $380. So yes, there is a $60 premium, but I don't know if the 5820 is going to still be in stock when it comes time to do this, and I don't want to take the chance that it's not. So if I have the money, a 6800 is perfectly fine. I know the only real benefit is extra PCIe lanes. I don't know how beneficial that will be at this point in time. I don't know if it'll be beneficial in 2 years, but if I have the extra $60, I might as well do it. The idea is to overclock it to around 4.2 to 4.4 gigahertz across all 6 cores, and that way I have a very, very, very powerfully running machine. Now, again, this is all dependent on a number of factors, but that's the general idea. Now, motherboard, I'm a little more back and forth on, because I'm not real sure about X99 motherboards, because I've seen a lot of things, people questioning their stability. I know I just watched a video from Jay's 2 cents where he actually had to take out an MSI X99 board because it was faulty. One of the memory slots was faulty. I do worry about that, because I don't want to be putting together a system, buy one of these $200 to $300 motherboards, and it just be a piece of junk. I am worried about that. So he seemed to consistently point towards EVGA's X99 classified, but I know Asus, ASRock's, they all put out good motherboards. So that's one area where if you have a good suggestion for an X99 board, I am all ears. I want to hear about it. I want to know why you think I should pick that motherboard over somebody else's. But once I do it, there's a couple of things that I need to make sure it has, and these are pretty standard things anymore. It needs to have an M.2 NVMe slot for SSDs, because that's what I want my boot drive to be. I want it to be either a 256 or 512 gigabyte drive, and I would prefer full size, but not really here nor there. And I need to have pretty much everything standard. The NVMe, the M.2 NVMe is really the only thing I'm really going, man, that needs to be there. So that's really the key component, and pretty much everybody I see has at least one, in fact even 2 on a lot of them now. So future expansion possible, which ties me in actually to storage. I want to do a M.2 SSD as my storage drive, and I want it to be at least 256 gigabytes. And the reason being is obviously Windows, and it would boot faster, especially on the higher end ones that are out there. But I also would love to have a 512 if available in my budget. And the reason for that is because now I can throw, Adobe Premiere, Adobe Photoshop, and all those other little miscellaneous programs I use on there. And that way my other SSD, which will be a 1 terabyte SSD, will be strictly for games. I want my games on their own SSD, not worrying about conflicting with anything else. So that's a big deal for me. I want my games on an SSD of their own, and it needs to be 1 terabyte, because games these days are huge. Battlefield, Battlefront, Gears of War, they're all like 50, 60, 80 gig installs, and that, you're going to get 10 to 15 games on this drive and it's full. So I do want to have an SSD for my games, and down the road I may have to split them off, put some on a separate SSD, but we'll cross that bridge when we actually get there. For now, I do want to have a 1 terabyte SSD. I am going to have hard drive disks in there as storage as well. I already have a 2 terabyte from my previous go round. If you remember, about 2 to 3 years ago, I actually started this process. I had a 4770K CPU, I had a gigabyte motherboard, I was up and ready to go. And then things didn't work out. I got garnished. I had to sell those things. I still have the 2 terabyte hard drive disk that I bought during that point because that was going to be my main drive. This was before, I mean, it was only 2 or 3 years ago, but SSDs were still just kind of coming around, and you know, a 250 gig SSD was like $300. They're now down. You can get a decent sized SSD for even under $100 real easily. So I still have that, and I want another one. I want a 4 terabyte as well. And somebody out there is going, well, you don't need hard drive disks. They're a waste of time. And then I do content creation, guys. I do want to have space. I want to keep the raw files for as much as possible, which is not going to be long because those are huge. But I at least want to keep the finished videos as well. And yes, I have a 4 terabyte SSD, a 4 terabyte external drive over here, but I don't want to clog that up immediately. So I kind of want to have my, content go onto the 2 terabyte, or no, that's not how I actually figured it out. I want it to go onto the 4 terabyte, and then the 2 terabyte is going to be where most of my assets are, my art, any templates that I create, and then record to maybe even the 2 terabyte or the 4 terabyte, doesn't really matter. And then edit, render, compress to the 4 terabyte, and then send them up on their way to the YouTube universe. So hard drive disks still have a purpose, and luckily this thing has, enough bays that I can do that. I skipped over memory because I'm going out of order, but I do want to have 32 gigabytes of memory. And again, somebody's going, oh, 32 gigabytes is overkill. I know all these things. There's a reason I want to do 32 gigabytes of memory. I want to have as much headroom as possible, especially if I'm using memory intensive programs. Now, again, 16 gigabytes is perfectly fine. I have 16 gigabytes in this laptop. I had them in my last laptop. I could get away with 16 gigabytes. The SSD and the memory are 2 areas where I'm willing to go down to make it fit within a budget if I have to. But I'd like more. I'd like a 500 or 512 or whatever. I'd like a 32 gig memory system. That's just what I would like. It's not necessary. I know it's not necessary, but it's what I would like. In terms of power supply, I am aiming for 750 watts, fully modular, preferably gold rated. But that obviously pushes the price up, but I don't want to screw around with the power supply. My first computer that I ever built, and I did build a computer before, and a lot of you don't know this, I used a cheap power supply, and I almost paid for it. The power supply actually failed. I went and got a better one. I now understand a lot more about power supplies than I ever thought I would realize. And so I have a better grasp of what I need to do with those. And so I am really looking for at least 750. I cannot talk. I'm going too fast. I'm looking for 750 watts. Obviously, if I can get more, I'm fine with that because that allows for expansion in the future, especially if I go SLI or even more than that. But it at least gives me some headroom. I know I can get away with like a 600, 750 watt, but I did say 750 watt is my base. I'm really screwing this all up. 750 at minimum. Obviously, if I can get more, the better. We'll just leave it at that. Now, in terms of fans and cooling, I'm not going to mess too much with the fans in the front and the fan in the back unless I go with NZXT's LED fans. They have some really cool things they do with their coloring. I may go for that because it'll add some light to this case, which is going to be sitting on the desk, and we'll get to that later. But other than that, I'm really just looking at getting a cooler, either one of their Krakens or a Corsair H100i. I've seen a lot of good things about those, and then maybe some static pressure fans to help move the air through. I got to do a little bit more research on airflow. I know in the front it's going to pull the air in and it's going to exhaust through the back. I don't know if I should have it come in through the top or go out through the top. The filters on this case are in the front and the bottom by the power supply, so I'm still kind of getting a grasp of that. If anybody has really good suggestions with that, I'm all ears. Other than that, I'm not going to do a whole lot. I've looked at and found some of the custom water loop stuff to be really interesting. I may experiment with that, but not on this build. So that's going to be how I cool things. I think the only thing left is the GPU. Now, I can get away with a 1060 or an RX 480. This is where Vega could be really interesting. If AMD can push something that's better than a 1080 or less, I'm all ears. I don't know they can do that. I know for at least 1080, for 1080p gaming at 60 frames per second, a GTX 1060 is going to do the job. I'd prefer to do 1070 because then it allows me to expand into at least 1440 down the road. And really, to do 4K, I need to have at least a Titan, and I'm not even thinking about 4K. I wouldn't mind getting into 1440, but then that requires new monitors, and 1440 monitors are like $600 for really good ones. So I'm not really thinking about that option. So for me, a 1070 would give me really great results right now for about $400 to $500, plus allow me to expand into 1440p at 60 frames per second. So I'm thinking of a 1070 as a minimum. If the budget allows, a 1080 is great, but I'm not really banking on that. I'm really not thinking I'm going to have an extra $200 to $300 for a 1080. I'd rather put that $200 to $300 towards 2 additional monitors. I like this monitor. This BenQ GL2460 is really serving me well. I like to keep my monitors consistent, so I'd probably grab a couple more of those and then have a 3-monitor system. Really, if I have a lot of extra money, I'd rather sell the laptop I have over here and then just buy a better laptop as a secondary machine. I have my reasons for that, and somebody's going, I have my reasons. I have my reasons for a lot of stuff. I almost always do. I don't do things on a whim. It's not my style. Secondary machine would allow me to edit videos or compress videos while I'm doing stuff on the main system. I have my purpose behind that, and of course on the go is always nice as well. So that's a general idea. I don't need headsets, I don't need keyboard, I don't need a mouse, I don't need speakers. I would need the operating system, but that's not a big deal. And maybe I'd upgrade the Logitech to the Logitech C922 webcam. Maybe I may go wireless with a headset. I don't know yet. I do know that I have a general plan. And so now, hopefully, having heard my reasons behind why I'm building what I build, I'm going to throw this out there. Now, this is going longer than I wanted it to, but that's okay. Excuse me. I want to get this information out there. Now, I also, in the future, want to kind of get a test bench going. And the reason behind that is I want to be able to, as money comes along, buy new pieces, new parts, see how they work, maybe review them. And a test bench would allow me to do that. Now, I'm looking at a particular one because, one, I've seen it in action and it looks really nice. I believe, I'm going to lock myself out of view because I have it bookmarked. It is the Praxis Wet Bench, and this bad boy retails for about $185, but it's made in mind with water cooling, and that's where we get into the stuff where I start tinkering with water cooling. I'm curious about these loops. They're not easy necessarily to do, and there's a lot of risk involved in them, but I'm interested in them. I'm curious about them. I've seen some videos on them, and it's got my mind going, that'd be really good for an X99 system. But I want to experiment on something cheaper and not nearly as good. So what I want to do is I want to get this test bench down the road, put together a decent system on it, and get a water cooling kit, learn as much as I can about it, and give it a try. And see, one, am I successful at doing it? Two, how difficult is it really to actually do? And do I want to take a chance in putting this into my main rig? Because that would give me the best cooling option. And I'm all about cooling because I do want to overclock the CPU. I may even want to overclock the GPU. I want to get into this stuff. I want to mess with these things, memory frequencies, all that kind of stuff. And water cooling loops are the best way to keep things cool. Now, the Corsair would do just fine. The Kraken would do just fine. But, you know, let's think bigger here down the road. Now, this is not imminent. I'm not really thinking that I'm not even thinking I'm going to have this wet bench this year. It's probably not going to happen, but I would love to put this bench together and have an AMD-based system on it. AMD CPU, AMD GPU, 16 gigs of memory, a little bit of storage to hold things on there. And I'd love to be able to test this. So that is why I'm not fully discounting AMD. Even though I may not build with them, I could still do this bench. So that being said, dogs have jumped down. They're taking a look over at the water dish, and I think I'm going to call this. It's gone on for 20 minutes. I've covered just about everything I want to cover in this video. I've talked about the processor, motherboard, memory, storage, GPU, power supply, cooling, what I could do with a wet bench, a test bench, whatever you want to call it, how many extra monitors I want to get. I think that pretty much settles it. That's what I want to do. For extra giggles, I will put links to each one of my builds parts lists on PC Part Picker, because that details definitively what I'm trying to look at and what options I'm giving myself. I'm not going to link to all of them that are in my profile, just the ones that I really think are actually viable. So if you really want to see more about my parts, go down to the link into the links in the description below. And I think we're going to call it right there, because I've covered everything. Nothing else to really get into. I really wanted to just discuss my options, and I've done that. So hope you enjoyed it. I'm not going to tell you anymore to subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff, because if you did, if you're watching this, you probably already are. If you're not subscribed, if you haven't by now, you're not going to. There's really nothing more to my channel than this right now. I don't have a whole lot of unboxings to do. I don't have the equipment. I did forget one thing, though. I do want to sit to stand desk. I want a new chair. And I want a better camera for recording things, because the camera I have is not very good, especially in any kind of even mediocre light. Like, even with all these lights on over here, this doesn't look bad in, at least in OBS, and I know in Final Render it won't look as good, but this Canon that I have, man, it struggles. It struggles in even a mediocre light, so need to improve that. So that being said, I'm gonna get on out of here. I do like the idea of a smart desk, but that's like $600-700 more. Chair is going to be $200-300 if I go for one of these gaming chairs. I don't think I'm going to, but it may happen. So a lot of money it's going to go into all this, but it'll give me a better gaming experience. It'll give you guys better quality. I'll be able to play games at full HD, at least at all settings, and I'll be able to record everything without any issue. I'll be able to stream. I really just want this all to happen, and I want it to eventually happen where I'm in a house and I have a room I can go into and I have a little bit of privacy, and that dog sniffing around over here looking for handouts. So yeah, I think it's time to go. I will catch you guys sometime in the future. Hi guys. Hi. My hand is getting licked right now. So that's it. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.